Welcome to today's presentation. As the nation's largest private mortgage insurance provider, MGIC is proud to provide you with the knowledge and tools you can use to be more successful in today's challenging mortgage marketplace. It is my privilege to pass the controls for today's presentation to MGIC Marketing Program Manager, Vance Edwards.
All right, Zach, and good morning, everyone. I know we do have folks joining us from different parts of the country, but I'm pretty sure I'm saying good morning. Zach mentioned, as the slide says, my name is Vance Edwards. I have 20 experience in advertising, marketing, the last 15 or so here at MGIC, a pioneer and founder of today's private mortgage insurance industry. The slide also says I am a certified FICO professional, which means I've been trained on FICO scores, what impacts them, and we're going to get into some of that today. But we also dive into some of the common misunderstandings people have about credit scores. As mortgage professionals, I think we're in an excellent position to educate consumers, as well as our ability and knowledge of credit to differentiate ourselves in our realtor eyes as well. We can earn their business and their loyalty. And I want to talk to you about some of the credit habits of that younger generation, the millennials, today's first-time home buyers. Now, before we further, I have been asked to let you know that MGIC's legal team will deny that this event ever took place or that my parents ever met. Also, I need to let you know that any of my opinions or ideas are my own, not necessarily those of MGIC. Not necessarily of MGIC's either, but either way, there we have it. So, that way, let's start with the importance of credit, not just in our industry, but in our overall economy. Economy, in many ways, was built on using credit. A substantial portion of consumers' spending is financed with debt. Cumulatively, U.S. consumers at the end of the second quarter had $11.62 trillion in debt. This debt acquired, of course, by consumers using credit. So we go over some of the basics fairly quickly before we get into some of those perceptions that are out there about credit that consumers have. Here we go over the basics, make sure we're on the same page. I go over that somewhat quickly, but I'm happy to stay on, answer any questions that you have. If I'm going too quickly over that part, I do want to be respectful of everyone's time as well. So, now, most of us know in the industry, there's a difference between a credit report and a credit score. However, many consumers often confuse the two. Credit score, of course, being that three-digit number that's based off the information in the credit report. However, not everyone has a credit report. In fact, 22 million adults have no credit file. 91% of adults who have one, however, the credit report comes from the three companies, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. These companies maintain national reporting databases. The basic reporting process begins with the consumer opening up an account, hopefully in payments, though the lender is going to record the activity and share it with the credit reporting companies. Credit reporting companies then update their records, add the current month to the history of that consumer, and consumer applies for new credit. The bureau share that information with that new lender. However, they're not obligated to report payment history. It's completely voluntarily done, and consumers can force a lender to report any certain bureau or recording any credit reporting agency for that matter. So just a couple things to keep in mind there. Credit report is broken into 4 sections of information. Identity information, such as phone, address, social security number, date of birth. This information helps creditors and lenders ensure that the credit accounts listed in the credit report actually belong to that person, not to a person with the same name. This information, however, is not used when calculating the credit score or determining credit worthiness. Now, next is the credit accounts themselves, or trade lines. Each credit account will include information on what type of account it is, credit card, mortgage loan, auto loan, the was open, credit limit, loan amount, account with payment history. Is inquiries or information about the company that have pulled a copy of a credit report for a particular person. And then public record information such as judgments, liens, short foreclosures, bankruptcy all fall into this. It does not include information like arrest, misdemeanors, other non-financial situations. Now, a couple quick notes. One, the two most common types of bankruptcy, Chapter 13, and Chapter 13 is where a person repays at least a portion of their debts. This bankruptcy remains on the credit report for 7 years from the filing date. Now, after 7, that other common type of bankruptcy, and interest on a person does not repay any of the debts that are in the filing. Chapter 7 bankruptcies are going to remain on the credit report for 10 years from the filing date. As far as unpaid tax liens, they're going to remain on the credit report for up to 10 years from the filing date. A tax lien is deleted 7 years from the date it was paid. Now, that was information. Let's discuss briefly what's in the credit report. This includes some obvious information you would expect not to be included, such as race, religion, medical information, history that is. If a consumer makes a cash purchase, it's a major one, that's not going to go into the credit report and therefore not improve their credit score. Now, more into that in a moment, but also not included in the credit report is the credit score. And we'll get that here as well. Before we get on to credit scores, though, I do want to share the fact that fewer than 1 in 5 consumers have checked their credit report. However, 42 million Americans errors on their credit report. But often these errors are not significant. In fact, only about 2% of the time is it so serious that it would lead a consumer to receive a higher price credit than they deserve. That still means 10 million Americans are being denied a loan or stuck with that higher interest rate because of that error that was in the report. Now, again, this is something we can use when we're talking to realtors or directly to consumers on the importance of actually checking their credit report. 30% of people that has been put into collections. This amount can be very small, from $20, or very large, up to $125. But it's been on their credit report for 7 years. And oftentimes, a person might not even know about it. Again, if it's a big debt, certainly know, but it could be something very small. It could be a parking ticket they forgot about, a membership to a gym, or a subscription that they had that they canceled a long time ago or thought they had, but for whatever reason, and now showing up on their credit report and could be impacting their credit score. Let's move to the credit score then. Like the credit itself, is merely a snapshot in time. It is the original and ultimate selfie, if you will. A credit score is a number that tells a lender how likely an individual is to repay a loan or make credit on time. Score is calculated by a scoring model that evaluates many types of information in the credit report from the agency. Comparing this information to patterns of thousands of past credit reports, these models identify the level of credit risk. The truth is, a person does not have a credit score, and what I mean by that is there's not just one score a person can have. There are several different credit scoring models that are used today. Examples of different models include the FICO scores, which is one of the most common credit scoring systems used by others, especially in the mortgage industry. This ranges from 350 to 850. The higher the better, but again, just one FICO score. FICO builds different scoring models, and software is installed for each of the 3 different credit report agencies. So, for instance, you see a Beacon score, a Pinnacle score, you're seeing or from Equifax. The agency itself, different scoring models. There's going to be a formula for a mortgage credit score, a different formula for an auto or a bank card score, and a loan score, a personal finance score. They're all going to have a slightly different model. In total, we're talking about 49 different FICO scores that a person potentially could have. That person have what's called Vantage score. The Vantage score, created in 2006 by the 3 report agencies, created so that each company could use the same formula. The score ranges from 501 to 990. Now, for our purposes today, we're going to talk about FICOs. their position in the market, especially in the mortgage industry. The Fannie and Freddie did just come out recently and say they're going to take a look at whether it only be using FICO scores. We should update from those 7 what they're currently on, skip over 8 and go right to FICO 9. They start including Vantage scores up, and Freddie and the FHFA came out and said they're going to get all that, but that's going to take time. So FICO scores to be predominantly used in the mortgage industry and the one we'll focus mostly on. But it's important to keep in mind when a person comes in and tells you, well, check my score and it's this. Well, do they score a FICO score? They probably got per FICO score. You pull it and you're going to have a mortgage score on them, and it might help explain why the score might be slightly different. It shouldn't be way off, but again, they're smart enough and they pulled their score, they're going to want to know why it's different from what they pulled. So you want to be able to explain this difference to them. Credit report discussion, there's a lot of common sense that's not factored in when generating the FICO score, including race, color, religion, national origin, sexual, marital status, a list of stuff. The person, whether they're participating in credit counseling, is not going to be in there. Again, you can read this list for yourself. You don't need me to read it for you. If you want a copy of these slides, your MGC account manager can easily get you a copy of them. Keep that in mind. So, not in the FICO. Well, what does make up the FICO? Well, the exact formula, as you can imagine, FICO keeps tightly secret. Very public about some other information. 2 main items that impact a FICO score are probably the same we would rely on if we were going to personally money to someone who asked for it, and that is, what is the person's payment history, and how much that person owe other people. The credit history, types of credit, apply new credit, all going to round out the roughly other third of the FICO score model. Again, we're going to do this fairly quickly before we get into the myths and how first-time homebuyers are using credit. I'm sure some of you know this stuff already. A lot of it, frankly, is pretty straightforward, common sense stuff. Happy to answer questions, come through the chat. Happy to stay on the time of the webinar. If we go past answering questions, no problem at all doing that either. Payment history, biggest factor, one of making the FICO. Details, missed payments, considers how the payments were, how much was owed, how recently they occurred, how many they are. The next factor on a person's FICO is, again, how much is owed. Now, when money on credit accounts, not necessarily make a person a high-risk borrower. Not money on an account doesn't guarantee a person to have a high FICO score. However, when a high percentage of a person's available credit is being used, they indicate that a person is overextended and therefore more likely to miss a payment or be late. FICO looks at several factors regarding amount owed, including not just the total amount owed of the accounts, but the amount owed on specific types of accounts, such as a credit card or installment loans. A number of accounts that currently have a balance. Remember, credit report is only a snapshot, that ultimate selfie. Person may be off the balance each month and every month, but time the report was pulled, and so it's going to show. Also, in a balance, not necessarily a negative thing. I mean, one can argue that a person who has a small balance and pays it off regularly manages credit better than a person who never uses a credit card. So, having a large number of accounts with amount owed may be an indication of a person who is overextended. With revolving debt, there's also what's called credit utilization. How much of the credit line is the person using? So it's close to paying out several different cards as what's called a high credit utilization ratio. And they have trouble making the payments in the future. Now, on your installment loans, what FICO is going to consider is how owed compared to the original amount. For example, borrower took out $2,000 to buy a car, and so far they paid back $5,000. They owe, you add in the interest, more than 75% of the original loan amount. Finishing with the other areas, the other 3 that impact a person's FICO score: blank credit history in general. Credit history will increase a person's FICO score. However, even people who haven't been using credit for a long time may have a high FICO score, depending again on how the rest of that credit report looks. In this area, FICO is really looking at how long credit accounts have been established, including the age of the oldest account, the age of the newest account, and average of all the accounts put together. Credit mix of credit cards, accounts, installment loans. Now, again, it's not necessary that a person has one of each, as it only makes up 10% of fact going to determine a person's FICO score, so it's not a key factor. Back I mentioned revolving debt and installment debt. These are your two basic types of credit that a person can have. Revolving credit is credit that doesn't have a specific number of payments attached to it. It's usually used on a regular, as-needed basis. Common examples would, of course, be credit cards. Another one very familiar in our industry, a home equity line of credit. Types of credits are used, paid off, used again. Now, this is called installment credit. That does have a specific finite number of payments attached to it. Usually comes in the form of a loan that's taken out, paid back in set increments for a set number of months. Again, for us, mortgage at home is the big one. Car or personal loan could also be an example of installment credit. Part FICO considers is new credit, also known or referred commonly as inquiries. Research shows that opening several new accounts in a short period of time represents greater risk, so FICO takes that into consideration. Now, a couple to note here that, again, 10% of the inquiries, so a small impact on a person's FICO score. Inquiries are ignored completely, and the scoring models allow for what is called rate shopping. We'll get into that here in a little bit too. FICO tells us, again, inquiries are not a factor in at least 57% of consumers. And if an inquiry does impact a score, it's typically less than a 5-point impact on average. Only 10% of consumers lose more than 10 points because of the information that's in the inquiry section of a credit report. Now, there's what's called soft inquiries. This is where a person is checking their own personal credit score, or an employer might be checking the credit report. That's not going to have an impact on the score. A thing called hard inquiries. That's when a person is actually applying for credit to be extended to them. Now, that is going to impact the score, and even only is really excessively applying for credit in a short period of time will have a major impact on a person's FICO score. Now, in recent years, due in part to the internet, it's become more and more common for consumers to shop around for rates when it comes to auto loan and mortgages. So scoring models are updated to allow for this behavior and not penalize consumer. For example, in many scoring models, for the purposes of different rates, they're all counted as one single inquiry is within a rolling 14-day period. Again, minimizes or eliminates any impact on this credit scoring model. Now, with that background, probably the biggest question I'm sure you get from consumers, realtors, probably ask yourself sometime is, what is a credit score? Now, unfortunately, there's not a clear-cut answer to that question. According to FICO, over half the population has a score above 700. 2/3 have a score above 50. Now, friends at American Reporting Company, in particular my friend Mike Olden, who I certified FICO professional. Mike is go-to guy for all things credit related. I love reaching out to him whenever I have a question about credit scores at all. He's extremely knowledgeable, great guy to work with. He works at a great company. Anyway, they were kind of to share this chart with me, and as you can see, there's a lot of good credit out there. The truth is, despite what the media might have us believe, credit quality has not changed dramatically over the course of time over the Great Recession. A little movement, yes, but again, over half the population a score above 700, 66% a score 650 or higher. Now, I know it can be overwhelming at first, but let me just walk you through it because there are 2 points I want to make. So on the left, we see the person's FICO was in October 2012, and then as we go across, we see what that score has changed to in a year's time. So, for example, 58% of the people with a score range of 700 to 749, stayed in that same range a year later. And we could expect people in this range, when they were in range from October 2012, a year later, 22% of them are going to move up to this range. 12.5 of them are going to slide back one range. You can see, overall, from year to year, not a lot of huge movement. However, look at the group who's in the 600 to 649 range and the 650 to 699 range. In both cases, 1 out of 4 of these borrowers are likely to improve their scores to move up to that next higher range, and some of them will go beyond that. It's never really want to say no to people seeking to buy a home, but rather when. Mr. and Mrs. Homebuyer, you do not have the credit score now to qualify, but I want to work with you, help you reach that goal, and then help them create a plan. Know that you're going to call them every couple of months to check on how it's going. And really, here's the thing. Even if you're not going to do that and you're not doing it now, you have no intention of doing anything like that, you still want to go back to your database and look at those lower credit scored borrowers. 5% or higher may have improved their scores and be ready to buy now or refi to a lower payment. Again, that'll lead us into some fun stuff, or at least fun to me, because I enjoy working with LOs and coming up with these marketing strategies. A lot of misinformation surrounding credit with great opportunities for loan officers to earn business, earn loyalty from their realtor partners. With the time story about the boy who meets a girl, they fall in love, and the girl pulls a credit report. A recent report showed that only about 30% of women, 20% of men, not marry a person if they have a low credit score. 5% of women say they consider the credit score of a partner very important. For men, or 57%, but still over half. In fact, there are some online dating sites devoted to matching good credit score single people together. Now, these sites are actually locked here at MGIC, so I had to do some explaining on why I was trying to visit them. Now, in defense, I knew that would be the case, but explaining to my boss in MGIC's IT department was a lot easier, in my opinion, than going and looking at the sites there and having to explain to my wife why I was looking at the sites. But sites are out there, and it's hiding how important it is to people, personal life. Now, personal life, how about employment? Can a person's credit score cost them a job? Well, it is mostly fiction. Boys, first off, they're not credit scores. They do, however, pull credit reports. According to the Society for Human Resource Management, 4% of employees use a credit check, or employees, using credit check on job applicants. 13% check on all applicants across the board. Now, I'm not allowed to run that credit check without the applicant's permission, and they do need to notify the applicant if they decide not to hire them due to the result of what they found in the credit report. That bad. In practicality, who says no, they may be considered by the employer, and the employer lists multiple reasons of why they decided not to hire that candidate. But the fact remains, employers are finding value in checking credit reports. Does balance help you build credit? Well, we touched on this a little earlier. History of using credit helps, but having a balance at the time the report is pulled does help a person. The scoring model rewards a person for keeping a balance. A thought that you're going to hear out there is, if you pay your bills on time, that's really all you need to do. So on time is going to be a big factor, but it's not the only one. How much credit line are you using? Again, back to what we call that credit utilization. That can hurt your score even if you're making all the payments on time. A target that the credit agencies and FICO point to when they talk about credit utilization is anytime it's over 30%, it starts to impact the score. Off debts, another similar misunderstanding. It's great that a person's paying them off. However, it's to remove it from the credit report. It's simply going to show it paid in full. Consumers need to know that most of the information remains in that credit report for 7 years. Similarly, people think it's fun, but in reality it's fiction. or fact, but in reality is fiction, is this thought that closing cards boost the credit score. Do just the opposite. Closing the credit lines also closes the available credit limit that a person has and can cause the score to actually dip down. Now, that's it. Consumers to know themselves. If they're just going to be too tempted by having that credit line open, then yeah, it might be worth closing. Hit running up a lot of debt that they cannot pay back. Here's what credit will tell us is fiction. Technically, they're right. I mean, income is not reported in the reports, and therefore, by definition, cannot impact a person's score. Commerce, of course, tells us, look, you make more money, you might be better able to pay your bills on time. Being able to do something and doing it are not necessarily the same thing. And what is a lot of money to a person varies. So, while it certainly doesn't help to make money, there's a lot of high-income folks out there who don't have the best credit scores. So, again, we will agree that this one is fiction. Fiction about credit reports is that being married merges the credit report. Or sometimes you have the exact opposite. They got divorced, which is going to separate the report. However, really the only indication that a person might be married is joint account in the credit report. And even that's not a sure thing. That could be a parent spouse, brother, sister, whatever. The truth is that when someone gets married, their spouse's accounts are not added to their own credit report. Now, if it opens a new joint account or the spouse is added as an authorized user, then the account will appear. It's helpful to know, be able to explain the difference to consumers between a joint user and an authorized user. A joint user is responsible for the balance on the account, no matter if that amount was owed prior to becoming a joint user. An authorized user, they can be account, but they're not responsible for payment. Finally, there's this idea that the age is going to impact the credit score. The truth is, this is both fact and fiction. And what I mean, identifying information on a credit report, the person's birthday listed. So, person age is that difficult. NOAA, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, considering age is perfectly legal. The act is credit scoring systems to consider age of the applicant as long as it does not discriminate against elderly, which OA defines as 62 or older. However, not being prohibited, credit models do not factor in age when determining the credit score. In fact, there's none, again, from that personal information section that's considered by the scoring models. And yet, old tend to have higher credit scores. Now, some common sense reasons for this, such as the length of credit history. Old people tend not to miss as often as young borrowers do. Young people tend to have more debt both on their credit card and their installment loans. Study shows us, by and large, have lower credit scores than the older generation. But here, reality can sometimes trick us into thinking that all young people have low scores. When they look at a chart like this, that's all they see. This chart also shows us more than half of those age 18 to 29 have a score of 650 or higher. And the people in that group are likely to have a score in the 750 to 799 range, a lot of people in the 600 to 649 range. We not have a lot of millennials who have a score of 760 or higher. We have more than we used to. Again, 11% is not a majority, but you don't need a 760 credit score to get a loan today. And I realize the media makes people think that's what you need, but again, we need to be that voice in our markets, letting people know that isn't the case. And that generation actually want that voice. It's to show that they would like to receive guidance on financial matters. And studies have also showed they probably have a good reason for wanting it. Only 49% of the so-called information generation has a free credit report versus 74% of the general population. 10% of millennials Utility companies, landlords, self-carriers, home insurers, mortgage lenders can all use a consumer credit report when deciding whether or not to do business with them. So generations rank lowest in all the generations on the number of bank cards that they carry with them, an average of 1.57. But debt generations at 2,600 and change also rank highest in that credit utilization, in average debt amount, highest in the number of late payments. So a lot of common sense reasons that's going to impact their FICO scores, so why the older generation might have a higher one. This generation said that they would ask parents to co-sign, and 7% of the parents would say yes if they were asked. In fact, 35% of millennials need a co-signer for a student loan. We touched on joint accounts a little earlier, but some more information, again, to help you stay with your realtors, share your consumers. 30% of co-signers made payments when the primary signer could not. 7% of co-signers did not find out about the problem right away. 7% of co-signers are going to take on the debt once that primary signer faults. Co-signing may be the right thing to do. But again, decision that should not be taken lightly. They should go with their eyes wide open and make sure they know what they're co-signing. Interestingly, the younger generation of Americans are living more and more without credit cards. In fact, the number of those without a card has doubled since the recession, up to 19.9%. So we'll call it 1 out of 5 consumers age 18 to 29 did single card at the end of 2013, compared to 8% who didn't card by the end of 2007. This group is not actively seeking out credit. Now, the Card Act of 2010 may be part of this. That act mandates under 21 need to show the ability to repay debt or you have a co-signer. However, also a factor in this trend is a reflection of the changing attitude toward debt, as many young consumers embrace debit cards over credit cards. That's going to be added in to the credit report. It's not going to help their credit score build. Now, perhaps we'll offset some of the student loan debt concerns that are taking over the area. In fact, I'm looking a lot at the student loan debt and preparing for a presentation that I hope to do webinars on starting next month, and the impacts that the loan debt will have in October. If you want information on that in your survey, just point that you'd like to see that one, and I'll try and prioritize it higher. I put some tips that you can share with your consumers or your realtor presentations on credit. Bill on time is, of course, the best thing a person can do to improve their scores. It's going to begin to improve the credit history immediately, just making the minimum payments on time. The payments and collections have significant negative impacts on credit scores. The longer history and bills on time, the better the score is going to be. Consumers are cautious about how many accounts they open, especially in that short time frame. New accounts will lower the average account age or the length of time that they've had the account. Additionally, if new accounts are open rapidly, it's going to appear they're in risk of credit utilization, this new credit, and could again lower the score. Rather than moving around, the most effective way, again, for a person to improve their score in this area is by paying down the revolving credit. Few people check the report each year, for that matter, have ever done it. People of getting their credit report. Fix mistakes. Fixing sometimes takes a little time, so they want to make sure they're staying on top of it. Get the process started as soon as they can, especially if they're looking at making a major purchase down the line. Remember, requesting your credit report is not going to impact your score. It's a soft inquiry. So, credit, I do want to let you know, MGIC, we are loans down to a 620 credit score. In fact, MGIC's GO program delivers streamlined MI for all loans up to 7% LTV, scores of 620. That's if a DU or approve, accept eligible response, or you have an ineligible response as long as that is due to the LTE or the loan instrument. Now, before I open it up to questions, I do want to let you know about this great program MGIC has to assist you in your helping first-time home buyers. Besides a copy presentation, the account manager can make available our home buyer kit. It has a lot of materials in it, including a PowerPoint presentation for your first-time home buying seminars, handouts that cover the importance of credit, understand credit report budgeting, a lot more great first-time home buying seminars, or partnering with a realtor to do those seminars. So, again, reach MGIC account manager on that. If you're not sure who your MGIC account manager is, let me go to our website where I can show you quickly where you can find that information. So MGD.com, a lot of information out here, but the one we're looking at right now is find your MGIC account manager. There, my state comes up, pick the state in. I don't know, let's go to North Carolina today. Janet Hall, Lisa Dahlgren, these great resources. Ken Irwin, again, depending on what county you cover, will be local MGIC account manager. So it's easy to find out who your account manager is, to find out about we help first-time home buyers, get a presentation, anything you need from MGIC. So check in and see if there's any questions coming in through the chat. Any questions there?
I don't see anything on my end. Didn't send anything over. I do have Terry. Looks like she raised her hand. So let me see if I can unmute her and if she has a question to ask you directly. Here we go.
All right.
Terry.
I was, if you could repeat what you said as far as shopping for a mortgage and how that impacts their credit score?
Right. You have an impact because it looked like a person was taking out a lot of credit all at once, and the scoring model said, oh, you know what they're doing is they're rate shopping. So what the scoring models have been updated to do is rise a lot of inquiries in a pertaining, like mortgage rates or auto loan rates. And they'll do is they'll compose all, if they all happen like within a 14-day window is what is from the scoring models. So within the 14-day window are going to count as one inquiry, as opposed to if they were looked at 8 different lenders and read about loans. Instead of hitting them 9 inquiries, it's just going to hit them with 1.
It's like 14 days, though. Okay.
14-day window, yeah. So again, pretty secretive about what it is, but they say approximately 14-day window is their answer whenever I ask them.
Could impact 5 points, right?
Inquiries in general, on average, the most it impacts is 5 points on average. Again, it's only 10% of what makes up the FICO score, so it's nothing to be overly concerned about. In most cases, inquiries don't impact unless you're, again, if you're opening a lot or asking to get extended credit, you go to the store, open up a gas line, open up a credit card, open up another credit card, apply for a mortgage all at the same time, then that's going to set off some bells and whistles. But most times inquiries, no impact, very little impact, I should say.
Excellent, thank you.
Thanks. Some other questions coming through the chat right now. And as to why someone who is only authorized signer on 2 accounts and the only account has credit score. Again, if those are the only accounts on there, I'm not quite sure. Again, to get into specifics of one individual person, but an authorized user use the credit limit and use the credit line. They're just not responsible for any of the payments. Whereas if they are a user, they not only can use it, but they are going to be held responsible for any missed payments. So if you're an authorized user and a payment gets missed, it's not going to hurt you. It's going to hurt the primary of that account. Question coming in about the rolling and one person it was a 30-day poll. Everything I've always read and been told is it was 14 days on average. Again, FICO's pretty secretive about it, and the important thing to let the consumer know is these inquiries aren't have a major impact on score because it makes up such a small part of what FICO is looking when they're rating what the person's score is. First, suggest keeping your balances around 40% of your limit would negatively affect your FICO score. And I wouldn't give them advice to keep a 40% limit. FICO is going to reward you for having a balance necessarily. They again, what is amount using compared to your credit limit is going to take a look at. But it's not just one account. It's going to look at all your accounts and what is your credit utilization. 30 is the target window that I've always heard and read is what anything over 30% of credit utilization starts to impact. Now again, the impact is a pretty vague term that FICO uses. They don't tell you exactly how many points is going to be there. But you pair off credit using a credit wisely as opposed to using it at all. But they want to use 0%, pay it off every month versus 40%. I haven't heard that 40% will actually help you. In my opinion, it probably is going to hurt you a little bit, not dramatically.
All the questions that I see coming in.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on the chat as we wrap up, though. So if you have a question, go ahead and throw it on there. We'll keep our eye on it. I do want to let you know some of our social media sites. Those of you on Twitter, LinkedIn, we'd love to have you follow MGIC. Not only get the latest changes happening at MGIC, but stay informed on a lot of great information that can help you be more successful, help you earn more business, especially like our blog features, weekly posts about different things happening in the industry that can help build your success, articles on HFA, better economic trends, thought pieces on what should happen with the GSEs, articles first-time home buyers, first-time home buyers not using credit, etc. So tips like that in there as well. We have a mobile app, both on the and Android, gives you instant rate quotes that you can email or share with your underwriter. You can compare different MI programs right from the app. You can contact your MGIC account manager or look at a rate card if you prefer to look at a rate card. Still haven't seen any other questions come into the chat. If you didn't get a chance to ask your question, you want to shoot me an email. Here's my address, my social media information. They don't ask me for a copy of the slides. That you do have to go through your account manager for. If you don't want to go online and get it, have to make an online introduction and tell you who your account manager is. So with that, I haven't seen any other questions, so I hope today was worth your time. I hope if you need MI, you'll think of MGIC. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Zach.
All right, Vance. That brings us to the end of our session. If you have questions still after we close, please contact your MGIC account manager, the most valuable resource MGIC has to offer you. If you know who your account manager is, go to www.mgic.com and click Find Your MGIC Account Manager. Thank you for your time and thoughtful questions. We do appreciate your business and continue to work hard to earn it. Have a wonderful rest of the day.